tell your neighbors, tell your church folks, and make sure that you follow us on Facebook on the Alabama Cares program, East Alabama. Make sure you follow us on TV 24. This show here is 3 days a week. It's aired 3 days a week, and every Friday with Courtney Lunham, we have Rise and Shine with Courtney, myself, and Alabama Cares program. And make sure that you visit all of our vendors, and I thank all of our vendors for coming. You guys are wonderful. And I'll see you next month.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of Road to the Blue Map. We are here in round 3 of the playoffs, and we want to start out by thanking our sponsors, Watkins Heating and Cooling, as always, for being the premier sponsor of the show. Watkins Heating and Cooling, for all your heating and cooling needs, please reach out to Brad Watkins. Anything you need as far as heating and cooling, that young man will definitely take care of you. Also, Countertop Creations, for all that they do, for our game-by-game breakdown. They are the sponsorship for that. Any of your countertop needs in and around Northeast Alabama, please reach out to Countertop Creations. Tommy Wyman and company will definitely take care of you. Chandler, how have you been, buddy? I noticed you went on a hunt last weekend and was out of pocket, so to speak. Talk to us about your hunt, and you did kill like a 30-point deer or something like that.
Enjoyed the mess out of it. Got to spend time with my dad, and no matter how old you get, always enjoy that time. So got to go do that. Got my deer out of the way on my birthday on Friday on November the 15th. And then sat around a fire and kept up with high school football scores the rest of the night. So it was a pretty cool evening, pretty cool weekend. My dad also got him one. Big thanks to the guys at Birmingham Fastener for taking us on that trip. It was unbelievable, beautiful place, just an unbelievable weekend for me and Dad. But excited to be back, and excited to be back for high school football. We are down to 8 teams in each classification and 4 teams in 7A, so it's getting down to the nitty-gritty quarterfinals in 1A through 6A, semifinals for Class 7A, and before we know it, we will be in Birmingham. So it's getting real.
You know, this is the time of year. I talked to Todd Ginn a couple of years ago, and he said something that his dad told him. He said, if you're still playing football when the grass turns brown, you've had a pretty good season.
No doubt about it. And also, like, whoever wins this week will be playing during Thanksgiving week, which is an even cooler. One time in my career, I got to go and coach during Thanksgiving week, and just a cool experience. Like, you never want to get out of the normal, but if you're out of the normal because you're in the 4th round of the state playoffs and the semifinals, it's a cool experience for the kids and the coaches and everybody involved, honestly.
Yeah, if you're practicing on Thanksgiving, and a lot of people do practice that morning early and knock it out and get it over with,
yeah, it's
and go
nice.
enjoy the day.
There's nothing like practicing on Thanksgiving, practicing in the morning, and then getting to go to a big family Thanksgiving dinner later that evening. Nothing like it.
You got that right. Let's kick things off, man. I'm going to let you kick things off tonight, and then I'm going to jump in here after you do your first 4 breakdowns, and I'll break 4 down.
All right, so I'm going to break down Class 6A, and you feel free to jump in anytime you want to. Looking at 6A first, you got Oxford versus Fort Payne. Oxford starts the year out. They are, and going into this game, Oxford is a big favorite, but that hadn't slowed Fort Payne down yet. Homewood was a favorite last week against Fort Payne, and Fort Payne found a way to win 35-32. So Oxford is a big favorite going into the football game, but this is 2 really good football teams. You're talking about teams that's won a lot of football games. I think Fort Payne comes into the game with a 10-2 record, but you got to understand they haven't lost since the 2nd week of the season. They have rolled off 10 straight victories since their bye week on week 3. So when you look at that, they beat a Pell City team that got better and better as the year went along. They beat a Homewood team last week that everybody had already penciled it in. Oxford was going to Homewood.
That's right.
In round 3, and Fort Payne said not so fast, and got a huge win in that one. And then you look at Oxford, 12-0, perfect season so far. They're very battle tested from starting out with Central Carrollton first week of the year, a team that could possibly win Class 5A in Moody, Mountain Brook, Helena, Clay Chalkville, Florence, a 7A playoff team, took care of Buckhorn, and then after falling down 14-0 this past week, a lot of people don't realize that it was a 14-0 ball game before you get. I think Hartselle took like 7 or 8 minutes off the clock on their first drive and scored, and then scored again. Oxford went 3 and out. Hartselle scored again. It's 14-0. Oxford answers because that's what they do, and then Hartselle tries to do a fake punt at like the 50-yard line, and Oxford sniffs it out, and scores a few plays later. And from then on out, it was just Oxford. At first, Oxford had no answer for Hartselle's run game. They're a big physical team that can run the football, play a multi-quarterback set. But then from then on out, after it was 14-0, Hartselle could do nothing with Mason Mims and that Oxford offense. You look at it, and talking about Oxford's offense, Mims was 21 of 25 for 276 yards and 5 touchdowns. Taylor caught 9 passes for 92 yards and 2 scores. Richardson had 2 more touchdown catches. Listen to this. Oxford's defense, 4 interceptions. Fleming, Taylor, Wilson, and Cedric Twyman all had an interception against Hartselle on past Friday night. So anytime you're causing turnovers, and then a guy that we don't want to leave out, a guy that we're familiar with, a guy we really don't talk a lot about because we expect him to have big nights, but Keenan Brett for the Oxford Yellow Jackets had 12 tackles. So when you look at that, when you look at Fort Payne, multiple players for them turned in a solid performance, but it was led by that guy, Dax Varnador, who threw for 277 yards and a touchdown. Carter Blaylock also was big on the ground, rushing for 57 yards. But in that 57 yards, he had 2 touchdowns for Fort Payne and the Wildcats. So when you look at this matchup, it's a matchup that, like I said, Fort Payne is not expected to win. When you look at it by the numbers, on the year, Fort Payne has averaged 31.8 points a game. Oxford has averaged 36.3. Defensively, Fort Payne has averaged giving up 17.6, Oxford 13.9. When you look at opponents' record, Oxford's opponents have a record of 62 and 57. Fort Payne's opponents have a record of 60 and 69. So to kick off Class 6A, you got a big-time matchup again at Lamar Field. That's right. Oxford has been at home in first round, second round, and now the quarterfinals. If they were to win, they would have to go on the road no matter what happens against Parker and Muscle Shoals. They would be on the road in the semifinals. So
I think they would take that.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Like it don't matter where you play. If you show up for the 4th round, it don't matter. And that goes for Coach Elmore and the Fort Payne Wildcats too. Like if we're in the 4th round, we're still practicing when it's Thanksgiving week. We got a chance to play to see who goes to play at Protective Stadium in Birmingham for a state championship. You put me in Alaska, you put me in a desert somewhere, you put me playing in the middle of I-20, I'm going to show up and play it. And so, and Oxford's crowd will travel, Fort Payne's crowd will travel. It'll be a packed house this Friday night at Lamar Field. So I'm excited about that first quarterfinal in the north of Class 6A. The other one, man, no stranger to making big plays, no stranger to this moment, Muscle Shoals and Parker. When you talk about Parker, last week they defeated Mountain Brook by a score of 28-7. We're talking about a really, really good, well-coached, really good football team that took Oxford to the brink earlier in the year. Mountain Brook 28-7. Just a big, huge win for the Thundering Herd there. And then you look at Muscle Shoals, somebody had to knock off the defending state champion, because no matter what happened in the regular season when Oxford beat Clay Chalkville was still the champion until they lost. In these playoffs, they have now been taken down. We will have a new 6A state champion this year because Muscle Shoals and that high-powered offense, 31-21 victorious over Clay Chalkville. When we look at what happened in these games for Parker, Naheem Alford, we know how good he is. Ohio State University commit, the Ohio State University commit. He showcased his versatility with 3 offensive touchdowns, a fumble recovery, and also a sack. He totaled 93 yards on just 9 touches. Terrence Gain led all rushers, pacing the Thunder Herd with 170 yards on just 15 carries. So that rushing game, attack for Parker is going to be tough to defend. And then when you look at Muscle Shoals, Mara Johnson had a huge game for them. Quarterback Kay Clinner had a huge game for them, and Ezra Fowler also had a big game against Clay last week. So when you look at it by the numbers, 9-2. Muscle Shoals comes in at 9-2. Their losses on the year come to Jasper and Gadsden City to open up the year. How those two teams went in completely different directions. But lost to Jasper 49-48 later on in the season. And then you look at Parker, their only loss comes to Carrollton, Georgia, out of Georgia. And we know how good they are. One of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation for them. And so that's their only loss in a game that they played well in. Let's look at the numbers. Muscle Shoals is averaging 42.2 points a game offensively. Parker's averaging 36.4. Defensively, Muscle Shoals 23.2 points a game. Parker 9.8. So you look at Parker, played really good offensively, played really good defensively. The thing about Parker, you look at this, both of these teams, their opponents have winning records. Parker's opponents 63-59. Muscle Shoals 63-56. So both of these teams are battle tested coming into these playoffs when you look at them. When you look at the Thundering Herd are 1-1 at home in the quarterfinals. And Muscle Shoals is 1-2 on the road in the quarterfinals. So going to be a really good matchup there. Going to probably be a lot of offense. It's going to have to be players who are going to have to make plays. And
if you're going to get a lot of offense versus Parker, you better be.
I don't know if you want to get in a shootout with them. Giving up 9.8. Literally the only time they've had trouble all year on defense is when they played Carrollton out of Georgia. And like I said, Carrollton has players all over the field as well. A lot of big-time recruits playing in that football game. If you're going to beat Parker, I think it's going to have to be where you can hold them and give your offense a fighting chance at the end of the football game. But Parker coming in, they were one of the favorites to win Class 6A. They find themselves right here in the quarterfinals. Can they hold on and win the game? Next, going to the South, a big-time matchup. Saraland, another team that could be a favorite to win Class 6A versus Spain Park, an undefeated Spain Park we're talking
quietly
about.
Have done this, and nobody's talking about them, but Vacak has done a great job.
Nobody's talking about them. They beat a really good Russell County team last week, 45-30. And then you look at Saraland, they beat a really good McAdory team. It wasn't close, 49-14 last week. So
that's crazy.
This is going to be a really tough matchup. It's going to be at Saraland. Both teams have played at home so far, and Saraland's on the top side of the bracket. So Saraland will host Spain Park. But when you talk about, you just mentioned it, quietly, Spain Park undefeated. Like when you talk about what they've been able to do, and you look at this, they're 12-0 on the year. They're averaging 38.1 points a game. They've rolled through the season. Like they haven't had many tests that's even been close. But when you look at what they've been able to do, unbelievable job by Coach, and I can't say it, Vacakis at Spain Park, and what he's been able to do since he came over from Jackson Olin. Just unbelievable job for him. And you look at it, 1-2 all time on the road in the quarterfinals is Spain Park. And here's a stat that's going to be tough. 5-0 all time at home for Saraland in the quarterfinals. So they don't lose very much when they make it to this point. When you look at it by the numbers completely, like I said, 38.1 points per game for Spain Park, 42.4 for Saraland. Defensively, Saraland stingy all year, 10.4 points allowed a game defensively. Spain Park not too shabby defensively as well, 17.4 average given up for them per game. 58-59 is the opponent's record for Spain Park. The opponent's record for Saraland is 54-53. So both played pretty tough schedules there. When you look at this game, though, Saraland started their second-string quarterback last week, Jamison Roberts. He took advantage of his first varsity start, throwing for 253 yards and 4 touchdowns as a backup. It's pretty nice to have that guy come off the bench and play like that. For Spain Park, their quarterback Bradley finished 13 of 17 for 199 yards and a touchdown. Shanks rushed for 22 times for 162 yards and a score. Cowie gained 123 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 16 carries, while also catching 4 passes for 44 yards and another score. So tons of weapons for Spain Park. They're going to come up with a really good game plan, though, as they face off. 2 undefeated teams face off. Another funny kind of tidbit right here. All 8 number 1 seeds advance to the quarterfinals for the second straight year for Class 6A.
That's strange, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that shows that there's a lot of parity in Class 6A. This is going to be another tough matchup right here. I'm ready to see if Spain Park can keep the magic going, or is Saraland going to continue to roll over teams and be that team that's destined to go play for another state championship in Class 6A?
If you're Vacakis in this game right here, the one thing you absolutely do not want to do is get in the shootout.
No.
You want to slow the ball. You want to control the ball, leave that prolific offense they have on the sidelines of Saraland, and run the football, and then you want to control the line of scrimmage. He wants to muddy this game up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that's the first and foremost thing. He wants to be physical up front on both sides of the ball, slow this thing down, because if you get out here in the shootout, which we seen in the state championship game last year when they played Clay Chalkville, one of the best football games I've ever seen. You agree with that?
Yeah.
Had Ryan Williams in the game going off. Mbakwe was going off. It was just a shootout. He don't want that.
No.
He wants to run the football. He wants to control the clock, control the line of scrimmage, play really good fundamental football, and he definitely wants to win the third phase of the game, which is special teams. I think that's where you get in a situation where special teams rears its ugly head, or it helps you. You agree with that?
Yeah, and another question is, like, what's the update on KJ Lacey? Like, will he be back? Or is he out for the remainder of the season for them? Because that could be a big time.
What exactly happened with him?
He's got a knee injury, so not sure what's going to go on there. But like when you look at, like I said, backup quarterback Jamison Roberts took full advantage. He looks like he's going to be a stud going forward as well for Saraland. But like, you don't just replace KJ Lacey.
No.
Like, you don't just plug in another guy and replace him and think everything's going to be the same. So
that's right.
When you look at that, like, that's a big question mark going forward the rest of these playoffs. Pike Road versus Hueytown, the last quarterfinal matchup in Class 3A. Pike Road, super talented. But when you look at this Pike Road team, lost their first 2 games of the year before winning 9 of their last 10. So you're looking at a team that got beat by Prattville, lost to Enterprise, and then run off 3 in a row, lost to Opelika. All their losses come to 7A programs. But then you look at Park Carlson win, Stanhope Elmore win, Russell County win against a really good Russell County team that was a second-round team. They beat them 46-14. Beat Charles Henderson in the last game of the year 50-35, and then in these playoffs 37-7 over Bessemer City, and then 44-6 over St. Paul. So they are rolling right now. You look on the opposite end, Hueytown, same thing. Lost their first 2 games. Played a really good Clay Chalkville team. Lost 28-7 to start out the year. Then played Mountain Brook. Lost 23-21. And they have also reeled off 9 out of their last 10. The only loss coming to Hillcrest Tuscaloosa, who moved up to 7A. Had a tough going in 7A, but was really good in Class 6A last year. So Hueytown's another team that's hot right now. They're coming off 2 one-score victories to start the playoffs. They beat Percy Julian by a score of 28-21, and they beat Spanish Fort 21-14. So when you look at those 2 teams, both of these teams 9-3 on the year. Both of these teams can score points, 31.6, 35.4. Both of these teams are decent defensively. Hueytown's giving up 19.3. Pike Road's giving up 22.4. Both of them have played opponents with winning records, 65-64 for Hueytown, 68-60 for Pike Road. This is going to be a matchup to where I'm excited to see, can Hueytown keep this magical run going? They are 2-1 all time on the road in the quarterfinals. And Pike Road is 0-0 all time at home. They've never played a quarterfinal game at home. So could that be the difference? Home field advantage, could that be the difference in this ball game? All 4 matchups in Class 6A are going to be very intriguing. Muscle Shoals has proven you can't count them out. Parker is probably the most talented team in Class 6A. Fort Payne, the Wildcats are absolutely taking this underdog, wearing it with pride, and giving teams all they want so far. Can they do the same thing against a 12-0 Oxford Yellow Jacket team with athletes all over the field? Pike Road, used to being in this moment, took a couple of years back and took a step back. They're back in the quarterfinals now in Class 6A after winning a Class 5A state championship not too many years removed. Hueytown got talent every single year. Great coaching staff. They do a really good job there. Saraland, we know how talented they are. Probably feel like they let one slip away last year. They want to get back and make a name for themselves and put one in the trophy case as well. And then you look at Spain Park and the job that Coach Vivakis has done there, coming over from Jackson Hole and completely turning their program around. 12-0, first time in school history being undefeated this late in the year. They have played for a state championship back in 2007, but have never been 12-0 at this point. Can they keep their magical run going and move on to the Class 6A semifinals? A lot of exciting stuff going on in Class 6A.
It's a good way to get out of the shadow, so to speak, of Hoover, what they're doing this year. A lot of people, nobody expected that.
Yeah, and we don't really ever talk about them. And so it's nice to see them actually get talked about because their kids work hard. They got great facilities, and Coach Vivakis does a great job wherever he's been.
We're going to talk a little 1A football here. We're going to go from 6 down to 1, and we're going to talk about the first game we're going to break down here is going to be Lynn versus Hackleburg. This is a 7-point line on this game right here. When you look at this game, it's an interesting matchup because they have played earlier this year. You know, Lynn lost to Hackleburg week 2, 33-13. But since that time, you know, that's the only team that has beaten Lynn all season long. And really, outside of the Hubbardville game, they've really not been challenged. They beat Appalachian last week 28-12 in a good high school football playoff game. But if you're Lynn and you're going into this matchup and you've lost to this team earlier in the year, what's your psyche? Yeah. Do you want revenge, or do you have the fear factor there? You know, I don't know. It's one of those situations where it's always good to have film on somebody, and sometimes you never know if a coaching staff thinks that they're going to play a team, again. Do they show everything they have? Well, it's one of those kind of things.
The good thing
What's
about
your
that,
thoughts on that?
The good thing about that is that game happened the second game of the season. We all know different things can happen this late in the season. Teams get better. Teams have injuries. Teams improve. Teams figure out who needs to play where. Teams figure out how I need to attack teams. Hackleburg, definitely a good team. You don't come in at 11-1 and not be a good football team. But Lynn has only lost one game as well. That is to Hackleburg. But I feel like Lynn's a really good football team. I feel like they're going to make the adjustments necessary. This game's going to be a lot closer than the game was to start out the year.
I think so, too. And when you look at Hackleburg, you know, they've been on a little bit of a mission this year. You know, they've lost one game, and it was to Hubbardville 28-22 earlier this year. But they beat a very good Winterboro team, and we've been talking about Winterboro all season, and they beat them pretty handily last week, 49-12.
Like, when you look at this, I just want to show you something. So, Lynn beat Meek first game of the year, and then lost to Hackleburg. And now, Hackleburg gets beat by Hubbardville in the last game of the season, the last game of the regular season, and Hubbardville actually lost to Meek in the first round of the 1A playoffs. So you can't look at anything that happens in the regular season when it gets do or die time, and everybody's pulling everything they can out of the playbook, and kids are working, and they know, hey, if I get beat, this could be my last ever high school football snap.
That's right.
Throw everything else out the window.
Yeah, because you don't know. Them guys are going to lay it on
high school football's crazy too. I'm just going to tell you, from dealing with kids, like girlfriend breaks up with you, had a bad day at home, had a bad day at school, failed a test. I don't know what it is, but you name it, it happens. You never know what you're going to get out of 15 to 17-year-olds.
Yeah, like you said, they could be arguing with their girlfriend.
Yeah.
And throw it. But the one thing I will say in this game that kind of separates the two is Hackleburg's defense. They've showed up and showed out each and every week. They've only given up now 18 points in these playoffs, and on the season they're only allowing 8.6 points per game on a defensive average. And when you go into these playoffs, if you're scoring 41.3 a clip and you're only giving up 8.6, that's a recipe for success. And, you know, they do have the win over Lynn earlier this year, and I'm going to tell you that I think that weighs heavily on heading into this game.
I'm going to be devil's advocate. It's hard to beat a good team twice.
That's true. That's true.
There's two different ways to look at that.
That is actually absolutely true, and I agree with you on that. This next team we're going to talk about, this next game we're going to talk about is a very interesting football game. We're going to talk about Wadley taking on Berry. Now, I got to watch Berry last week, straight up in person, and I'm going to tell you right now, I was very impressed. They go on the road to Spring Garden, and they shut Spring Garden out. Now, think about that for a second. Can I have that water for a second? I need to sip that water. They go on the road, and they shut Spring Garden out, and I'm sitting there watching that live, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you were at that game.
Yeah. I was at that game. I was sitting there watching that game live, and I'm telling you, to pull that victory out 6-0 like that, that was unbelievable.
Well,
I was really impressed with them. Their defense was giving up 22.8 points per game heading into that.
Yeah, and we talked about how good the quarterback for Berry was, and that could be the difference. But the difference was Berry's defense And as much as we don't want to talk about it, there was some games where Spring Garden's offense struggled, but their defense had been so good. But they finally got in a game where somebody could score with them a little bit, could play defense good enough to keep them from scoring. A 6-0 ball game, you don't see much of that in this day and age.
Dude, to shut out the Garden at the Garden, that is pretty impressive.
Bad thing for Barry is job don't get no easier this week.
That was bringing me my next point. Now they're taking on a team that looks like they're on an absolute mission. We're talking about Wadley. You know, Wadley, not only are they undefeated this year, they're outscoring their opponents 53-13 on the year. Last week in a second round playoff game, I want you to listen to this now. They're taking on a Meek team that's a very good football team, albeit themselves. They were up on them 41-6 at halftime.
Yeah, Wadley's a
Think
different
about
animal.
that.
Like Wadley's got between the Wills kid, the Robertson kid.
I think they're tired of everybody saying 1A North is a joke.
Yeah, I believe that's the same case, and they've kind of put their foot on the pedal. And when you look at them, like I said, really good players across the board. Coach Shannon Motley does an unbelievable job there. But, I mean, Barry's not going to roll in and just roll over. They just got done beating a really, really good Spring Garden team. Everybody thought we were going to see Wadley and Spring Garden in the quarters.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Everybody did.
Barry is playing with so much confidence right now after going to the Garden, a very tough place to win now, and beating them, and now they're getting to host Wadley. Anything can happen. I told you, man, like, it's high school football.
Hey,
That's why we play the game.
And you sit there and you look up and you see a 15-point line, what does that tell you? That's plastered everywhere in their
locker room. Like, it's so disrespectful to them, but in all reality, it just speaks on how good Wadley is.
That's right.
I got to give Buckethead a shout out. He told me on the way to Huntsville, Alabama on Friday that Barry was going to beat Spring Garden. I can tell you that. He called it. He's already told everybody in the comments, so I figured I'd give him a shout out there too.
So 49 to, they're averaging 49 points a game. They got held to 6 last week by Spring Garden. Kudos to Spring Garden's defense. I mean, to hold them to 6.
Yeah, and I think we knew.
If somebody gave you $1 million and said, hey, Barry's only scoring 6 this week.
I'm going with Spring Garden.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 times. That gives me props to say, hey, it gives them props to say, hey, we went in there, we got held to 6, but we won the game.
Yeah.
Survive and advance.
No doubt. I mean, there's no ugly win in the playoffs.
Can I throw this out there?
Yeah.
They're going to have to score more than 6 this week to beat Wadley.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just going to throw that one out there.
I agree.
The next one, I want your take on this one. We're going to talk about Elba versus Georgiana. Now, we know what Alvin Henderson is. We know how good he is. We know they seem to be on a mission too. I'm going to throw these stats at you. I'm going to kick it to you and let you talk. Alvin Henderson on the year, 229 carries, 3,124 yards. He's averaging 13.6 yards per touch. He's got 55 touchdowns.
Okay, so with Alvin Henderson, we know what we're going to get out of him. He's going to get his. We know that. But we also know with this Elba team that there's a game that they lost earlier in the year that he scored 10 touchdowns and they got beat like 80-something to 70-something. I'm not looking at it. I don't know the exact score.
It was against McKenzie.
Yeah, McKenzie.
It was 80 to 78.
80 to 78. So the biggest question with this Elba team is, can their defense continue to hold up? Because when you look at them defensively, they're averaging almost giving up 30 points a game this year. And then you look at Georgiana, like you talk about having confidence. You talk about a Georgiana team that finished 3rd in their region. That just beat the defending state champions, the Leroy Bears, 16-14 in round 2. So they're not scared of anybody right now. Like, they beat the top dog last week. They're going to be playing with so much confidence. And like I said, we know Elba, and Elba's got more guys than just Henderson. Like, they got a loaded 1A football team. But the question is, can defensively they play well enough to continue to run through these playoffs? They're going to score points. They've shown that. They've scored 77 and 49 to start out the playoffs. But can their defense hold up enough to give them a chance to realistically win the state championship?
Yeah, that's the point is look, I think if you're Georgiana, you're like, hey, bro, their defense averages giving up 30 a game.
Yeah.
If we can somehow get a few stops on him and we go put up their average, which is 30, then I think we got a shot.
Yeah, but like selfishly, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm not picking a game. But selfishly, when I go to Birmingham, the 1A football game that I want to see is Wadley versus Elba.
I think everybody wants to see
That would be an unbelievable ball game with really good players across the field. So, that's the question with Elba. Defensively, can they stand up enough to get themselves a chance to win? Because offensively, they're going to put up points.
There ain't no doubt about it. I agree with you 110% on that one. The last 1A game right here is another really interesting game. We're talking about Maplesville versus Millery. And Maplesville has got two guys I want to talk about right now. Pierce Yeargan is a dude at quarterback for them. On the season, he's completed 110 of his 200 attempts. He has got 18 touchdowns. He's got an Achilles heel, though. His Achilles heel right here is he's turned it over 7 times.
Yeah.
So, he's got 18 touchdowns, which is very good, but he's turned it over. So he has a tendency to turn it over almost at half the clip he is scoring at. They got a receiver who's a freshman, Nehemiah McCray, he's a running back. He's a freshman. His name's Nehemiah McCray. He's got 124 carries on the year, 843 yards, and 11 touchdowns. You want to talk about a close football game? They got this one at a 1-point line.
Yeah, and you look at Millery. Now, let me give you a crazy stat about Millery. Do you know what Millery's record was coming into the postseason? Without looking. Do you know what their record was after the regular season? Because I couldn't have guessed it. I had to look.
6-4?
6-4. They're 8-4 now, and Millery is absolutely rolling. They beat University Charter School 34-6, and then beat a really, really good McKenzie team that we already talked about already. That won 1A Region 2. And so when you beat them, and we're talking about a McKenzie team that beat Keith by a score of 50-6 in round 1. So big win for Millery, and you look at Maplesville, they're used to being. They just beat a really good Sweetwater team. You talked about how close that game was going to be last week. We talked about that at length last week. So Maplesville's got plenty of confidence too. They just beat a blue blood. They are a blue blood, but they just beat another blue blood in Class 1A. So Millery and Maplesville, that's going to be a really good football game now. Millery throughout the year, they lost to Citronelle, who was in the Class 5. They lost by 3 points to Citronelle, who was in the Class 5A second round. All right, they lost to Sweetwater 6-0. That tells you how close this game's going to be. Maplesville just beat Sweetwater by a score 21-20. They lost to them early in the year, third game of the year, 6-0. They lost to Clark County 30-27, and they lost to Leroy 19-7. So Millery is a really good football team at 8-4. Don't let their record fool you.
Yeah, and they've never hosted in this round before either. That's interesting. So throughout all their history, Millery's never hosted right here. They're 0-0 at the home in the quarterfinals. So imagine that atmosphere down there. That's got to play into this.
It's going to be unbelievable.
Guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Come out and check out the Alabama Tractor difference. We can take care of all your needs of parts, sales, and service for RTVs, zero turns, and tractors and construction equipment. See us here in Lincoln at 620 Speedway Industrial Drive. Or come visit us here in Asheville at 275 6th Avenue, or give us a call at 205-594-7000.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eli Gold, and I want to invite you to tune in to Jack State Live, a look at the campus and athletic department at Jack State, followed by the Coach Rich Rod Show, where we will break down and preview the next football game for the Gamecocks.
I want to live. The leading cause of death of young Americans like me is gun violence, and oftentimes tied to substance misuse. NBA, NFL, NCAA, most of you look like me, and our communities need you now more than ever. Let's make I Want to Live more than just a hashtag. Let's make it a movement. I am a baller against bullets.
Penguins Bar and Grill. Come down for our amazing bar, stocked with everything you could want, and our amazing food, ranging from whole pizzas all the way to oysters. Our food is cooked fresh and brought to you with amazing service. For the best food and drinks, come to Penguin's Bar and Grill.
Hello, my name is Bob Couch, and I'm the owner of Couch's Jewelers. We are your destination for engagement rings, wedding bands, and anniversary and birthday gifts. We offer a wide selection of the best value diamond jewelry and engagement rings. We even gift wrap every purchase for free. And if you have some jewelry that is broken, no worries. Expert jewelry service is offered in-house. At Couch's Jewelers, our customer service is unmatched. If you'd like a special jewelry item created just for you, please come to see us.
Discover why Hungry Hut Barbecue has been Etowah County's go-to for mouth-watering barbecue for 40 years. If you're not in the mood for barbecue, try our very popular chicken finger plate with fried green tomatoes of our famous fried pickles. And don't forget about our drive-thru. Come down to Hungry Hut's Barbecue today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eli Gold, and I want to invite you to tune in to Jack State Live, a look at the campus and athletic department at Jack State, followed by the Coach Rich Rod Show, where we will break down and preview the next football game for the Gamecocks.
Welcome back. You can see set got a little bit lighter. Bo had an emergency real quick, had to take care of sugar issues, so he will be right back. But I'm going to carry on. First off, before I do, I want to thank our sponsors, Watkins Heating and Cooling. Any of your heating and cooling needs, make sure you call Brad Watkins. And then also, Countertop Creation does all of our game-by-game breakdowns. We appreciate both of our sponsors. Can't do it without them. I'm jumping to Class 4A. While I wait on him to get back, in Class 4A, first game I want to look at is Fairfield hosting St. Michael. When you look at Fairfield, big win last week over W.S. Neal, 23-22, and then probably the upset of the entire Class 4A playoffs last week. St. Michael's goes to Pleasant Grove and beats Pleasant Grove by a score of 38-24. Probably, like I said, the upset maybe of the entire playoffs. They came in as a 15-point dog and come in and upset Coach Darrell LeBeau and the Pleasant Grove Spartans. So looking at this matchup, when you look at it, St. Michael comes in at 11-1. Their only loss to the year is to probably the Class 4A favorite, the Jackson Aggies, midway through the season. But in the playoffs, they beat Handley, a perennial powerhouse, 63-40. They beat Pleasant Grove, who has won every year since Coach LeBeau has been there, 38-24. This offense is absolutely ridiculous. If you hadn't seen them, they're going to throw the ball around the yard. They're averaging 39 points a ball game. And Coach Phillip Rivers has those guys playing. Coming in, he felt like they had a chance to be really good this year. And here they are in the Class 4A quarterfinals with a chance to go play for a South Championship next week with a win over Fairfield. But Fairfield comes in, and they are their record is 9-3 on the year. Their losses come to a Pleasant Grove team early in the year. They lost to West Blockton and they lost to Oak Grove the next to last game of the regular season. But they got in the playoffs. They've got the deal done. They come in as a 12-point dog to St. Michael. So can St. Michael handle being the favorite as unlike last week where they were the underdog? By the numbers, when you look at this ball game, St. Michael averaging 39 points a game, Fairfield averaging almost 30 points a ball game. Both of these teams a little sketchy defensively. Fairfield is averaging giving up 24.3. Whereas St. Michael is averaging giving up 26.3. Here's something that could be the tale of the tape, though. St. Michael's opponents have a 65-55 record, whereas Fairfield's opponent come in 56-70. When you look at these two teams, first time that the Cardinals have ever played on the road in the quarterfinals. They're 0-0 all time. When you look at Fairfield, they are 0-1 all time in the quarterfinals at home. So pretty good matchup right there to start out Class 4A. The other matchup in the South, all right, is going to be Tallahassee at Jackson. You talk about maybe the surprise team of the year. That is the Tallahassee Tigers. They come into the game 9-2 on the year. Their only losses, Montgomery Academy opening up the year, they lost 22-16. Then you look at Booker T. Washington, they lost 26-21. When you look at them, last week they defeated Ashford 40-14. Jackson comes in, just steamrolled everybody since they got beat by Class 6A, one of the favorites in Class 6A, Saraland, to start out the year, 35-27, a one-score game, 4A versus 6A. That tells you how good this Jackson Aggies football team is. Since then, they've reeled off 11 straight. They are 11-1. They're averaging 45 points a game, only giving up 12 points a football game. When you look at it by the numbers, like I just said, Tallahassee, right at 30 points a game scoring average, 45 for Jackson. Jackson only giving up 12, whereas Tallahassee's giving up 16. So both of these teams can score. Both of these teams play pretty good defense. Opponent's record, though, here's where it gets a little sketchy. 51-66 opponent's record for Tallahassee, 73-58 record for the Jackson Aggie opponents. Like I said, coming in, no, this is not a hot take. This is not anything. Jackson coming into the season was the favorite to win Class 4A. And on the field, they've done nothing short of make us feel like that still could be a possibility for them to win this classification. So when you look at that, this is a tough game for Tallahassee. But when you look at Tallahassee coming off a few rough years, for them to be, at this point, be 9-2 on the year and have a chance to win and go to the semifinals in Class 4A, an unbelievable job from them this football season. Moving on to the North in Class 4A. When you're looking at the North in Class 4A, you start with Cherokee County and Brooks. All right, Brooks is another team, surprised to be here, but playing really good football right now. When you look at Brooks, they lost 2 of their first 3, but after that, they are 10-2 on the year. So they have literally won 9 straight ball games. They beat Dora in the first round of the playoffs 38-7 on the road. They hosted Alexandria last week, hold on to beat Alexandria 41-35, even though Alexandria stormed back and tried to win the football game. When you look at Cherokee County, 1 loss on the year to rival Piedmont by a 1-score ball game to start out the year, 34-27. After that, they beat a 5A playoff team, Arab, 42-21. 47-6 over Anian, 42-0 over Etowah, 47-6 over White Plains, 20-6 over 6A Shades Valley, 14-0 over Anniston, 35-21 over Hoax Bluff, 35-7 over Alexandria, 49-6 over Asheville, 48-13 over Westminster Christian, and then last week they beat Central Florence by a score of 41-14. They are 11-1 on the year. When you look at it by the numbers, 37.3 points averaged per game by Cherokee County. When you look at Brooks, 37.5, almost a mirror image. When you look at defensively, 10.7 defensive average for Cherokee County, 17.7 for Brooks. Opponent's record, 70-60 for Cherokee County, 70-61 for Brooks. So both of them have played a really, really tough schedule to get to this point. When you think about Brooks, are they hot at the right time? Are they playing well enough to knock off the 2-time defending North 4A champions? Or is Cherokee County just going to be too much? When you look at Cherokee County, the names you need to know: Diamond, Tay Diamond, runs the ball at will. Tristan Brown, unbelievable player. And then the Woods kid, all 3 of them, they have a 3-headed monster. All 3 of those guys can make plays when they need to make plays. And then look no further than that defense led by Coach Brett Henderson. Play unbelievable defense. There's a reason why they are where they are at. It's because they play really good defense. Like, defense and run game travels, we talk about it all the time. Cherokee County, no stranger to playing really good defense. I think they continue to play really good defense. And so when you look at that, you know that they're going to be good. And yes, you are right, Damian Joyner. Jackson has a 4-star quarterback. They got athletes all over. They're unbelievable, and going to be a tough game for Tallahassee going back to that game. But when you're looking at Cherokee County, are they too much for Brooks? They have to go on the road for the first time in this playoffs. Is Brooks going to be good enough to hold on and to keep this magical run going, or is Cherokee County, the 2-time defending 4A North champions, just going to be too much for them? And then the other one, probably the surprise of it all, probably the surprise of everything in Class 4A, is the Anniston Bulldogs so far in this playoffs. Now, they get an undefeated West Morgan team, a West Morgan team that's used to making deep runs, made a deep run last year. But when you look at Anniston, they are battle tested. You look at their schedule. They lost an 8-6 ball game, first game of the year to Beauregard. Then they lost 3 games in a row to Hoax Bluff, Pleasant Grove, and Cherokee County. Then they lost the last game of the year 28-24 in a game against Jacksonville where either team could have won, kind of a sloppy game on both sides. But when you get into the playoffs, you see an Anniston team who is absolutely playing out of their mind. Beating Randolph by a score of 40-12, beating Good Hope 43-14. An Anniston team that's playing ridiculous right now. And you look at that, I think the biggest difference has been the emergence of quarterback Damon Pope kind of taking the bull by the horns and taking that starting job. He scored 2 touchdowns on the ground and also passed for another this last week. Anniston 7-5. They might be the best 7-5 team in the playoff. They might be the only 7-5 team still left in the Class 4A in playoffs, period. But when you look at Anniston, they've got to keep doing what they're doing. They haven't shot themselves in the foot. They played really good ball. They're averaging on the year 29.3, but in their last 6 games against 4A opponents, I believe they scored over 40 points. So when you look at that, can they keep that going? Talk about them being battle tested. Their opponent's record, 75-56 for Anniston. They played a tough schedule. It is now paying off for them in the playoffs. When you look at West Morgan, their opponent's record, 61-68. But when I say all that, they've done everything they need to do to be at this point, be undefeated. They've scored 44.8 points a ball game. They've only averaged giving up 10.3. So they play really good offense. They play really good defense. They're going to be a really tough opponent. My question is, can Anniston keep playing the way they're playing? They do have a common opponent, which is Randolph. All right, both of these games was at West Morgan. Anniston won 40-12 in the first round of the playoffs, and early in the year, first game of the season, West Morgan beat them 31-0. And so both of these teams with a common opponent, both took care of business pretty handily against a common opponent in Randolph. Can this game be what everybody thinks it's going to be in Class 4A? Can Anniston keep this magical run? They are on fire. I know Coach Rico Jackson is fired up about that. Can they keep moving and keep doing what they've been doing there? All right, next I want to look at Class 3A. When we look at Class 3A, some really, really good matchups in Class 3A. All right, first I want to start out with Bayside Academy at Southside Selma. All right, this is the first time in school history that Southside Selma has hosted a playoff game in the quarterfinals. Let me start with that. First time ever in school history. All right, when you look at these two teams, all right, though, Bayside Academy comes into the game. They've lost 3 football games on the year. They are 9-3. Southside, the Panthers, enter the game at 10-2. All right, they're common opponents. They do have common opponents. Hillcrest, Evergreen, and Hale County. This right here will tell you what kind of game this should be. Bayside Academy beat Hale County 36-6. Southside Selma beat Hale County 56-6. And then you look at Hillcrest Evergreen, 36-35 ball game by Southside Selma, 28-20 win for Bayside Academy. So 2 common opponents, 2 close games, or 2 games that are very similar. They both blew out Hale County. They both won in a 1-score ball game to Hillcrest Evergreen. So Bayside, no stranger being at this point. They are 1-2 though on the road in the quarterfinals. All right, by the numbers this year, Bayside Academy has only scored 19.4 points a ball game, whereas their defensive average is 12.3. So their defense is definitely who totes this football team. When you look at Southside Selma, they've scored 42 points a ball game and gave up 18.8. Both teams have played really good opponents. They both played a tough schedule. 76-55 record for Bayside, 64-64 record for Southside. So you look at this, Class 3A is going to be an absolute dogfight for whoever in all these games. We're starting out this game, Southside Selma, like I said, first time they've been here. Last week, Southside Selma beat Montgomery Academy by a score of 44-34. Bayside Academy beat Alabama Christian 23-7. We talked about the defense for Bayside Academy. Can it stand up against a really potent offense when we talk about the Southside Selma Panthers? All-time in the playoffs, Bayside Academy is 16-14. Southside Selma is 4-11. Bayside has had 15 appearances. Southside Selma has had 12. So in the playoff, Bayside has had the most success out of the two teams, but which one will show up and play well this week? Going on to the next game, T.R. Miller. T.R. Miller's a team that we hadn't talked about a whole lot because they've kind of handled their business all year. They come into the ball game 12-0. All right, T.R. Miller is that power that has kind of went missing for a couple years, but now they're back. And then they play Houston Academy team, who's only lost one game on the year, and that was to Montgomery Academy by 2 points, Montgomery Academy 12-10 in the third football game of the season. The Raiders defeated Thomasville last week 45-33, and T.R. Miller defeated Trinity 21-7 last week in the second round of the playoffs. Like I said, the Raiders are 11-1, the Tigers are 12-0. Listen to this. Both of these teams know how to score. 44.3 points averaged for the Houston Academy Raiders, 40.5 for the Tigers of T.R. Miller. Both teams play really good defense. 12.7 defensive average for the Raiders from Houston Academy, 8 points a game. If you get a touchdown against T.R. Miller, you are a very lucky football team. They've only averaged giving up 8 points a football game. Like I said, T.R. Miller is perfect on the year. Houston Academy hadn't lost since the third game of the season. They are on a 9-game winning streak. So both of these teams are hot at the right time. Listen to this. T.R. Miller, all-time 12-3 at home in the quarterfinals. All-time 1-2 on the road in the quarterfinals for Houston Academy. By the numbers one more time. 11-1 for Houston Academy, 12-0 for T.R. Miller. 44.3 points scored a game for Houston Academy, 40.5 for T.R. Miller. Both of these teams can score, but both of these teams also play defense. What's going to give this week? Which defense is going to be the best defense in this Class 3A South quarterfinal matchup? And then moving to the north, a game that I know everybody in our area is intrigued by. A game that we didn't really know we could get. I'm going to be honest with you, Fife. I didn't know if you could beat a really good Gordo team without Logan Anderson. I didn't know if you could do it. I had my question marks last week, and boy, did you answer my questions. Not only did you beat them, you demolished a really good Gordo team 42-14. And then you look at Piedmont. They avenged a loss against Lauderdale County. They beat them 21-6. Both teams playing really good defense. And I think this game is going to be a question mark of which style is going to have the most success. When you look at Piedmont, they like to spread you out. They got a playmaker in Raleigh Pinto. They got a quarterback that can throw it around. They got Hayes Gunn who can run it when they need to run it. But they're not very big up front on either side of the football. They're not very big, especially on the defensive side of the football. Fife, they're going to line up in the Ugly Eagle. Coach Benefield's not going to mix up what he's been doing. He's not going to change anything. He's not going to change anything, even though his best player, Clemson commit Logan Anderson, is out for the rest of the year. He's going to keep doing what he does, and they're going to keep doing what they do. And the question mark is, can Piedmont's defensive line hold up against this potent running attack that Fife has? And I have my question marks in that because Piedmont is undersized up front defensively. They are a spread it out, smash mouth kind of football team. But I say all that to tell you this. Piedmont's 12-0. It's working. Coach Jonathan Miller's done an outstanding job in year number 2. I talk about some of the players they got, but I hadn't mentioned their defense. And we're questioning their defense, but listen to their defense. 17.2 points given up on the year against a really tough schedule that has Cherokee County in it, who is a Class 4A, has a chance to win Class 4A North again and play for a state championship in Birmingham. You talk about they played Ohatchee, who went and put up points, a lot of points against Fife in the first round of the playoffs. Westbrook Christian, coached by Coach Steve Smith, who won a lot of state championships at Piedmont. They played a Locust Fort team that, before they lost Dino, was a really, really dangerous football team. They played J.B. Pennington, who was a playoff team last year in Class 3A. They played Walter Welborn, who was a playoff team last year in Class 3A. They played a really good Collinsville team to start out the playoffs and controlled that game 46-28, and then didn't give up a whole lot of anything against Lauderdale County. But then you look at Fife. Fife lost to Pisgah 30-22 to start out their season. They lost to Coosa Christian 29-2 in what was a defensive slugfest. all right, that Coosa just kind of took control of late. And then since then, beat Sylvania 49-17, beat Weisburg Christian 49-7, beat Holly Pond 61-18, beat Geraldine 42-7, beat Ohatchee 66-30, beat Gordo 42-14. We got a dogfight happening at the Field of Champions on Friday night. I think it's going to be one of the better games in our area. I think Fife is used to winning. By the numbers, Fife is averaging 45.5 points a game. Piedmont's averaging 42.3. Fife's averaging giving up 14.7. Piedmont's averaging giving up 17.2. Opponent's record, 65-55 for Fife. Piedmont, 68-59. Two teams that almost are mirror images of each other than their style of play. Who wins, the Ugly Eagle or the spread? Can they stop the Ugly Eagle? Can Fife stop the likes of Raleigh Pinto and Ish Bethel and Hayes Gunn and Cole Wilson? Can that defensive line hear what I'm saying and step up and play bigger than what they are against a very physical Fife offensive line and run game? A lot of question marks in that game. And then moving on to another game that I'm very intrigued by, Winfield at Mars Hill. We know how good Mars Hill is. They have one loss on the year, and it's the 5A second-round playoff team, Scottsboro. 22-21. They lost by a point. They are 1 point away from being undefeated on the year. All right, they've handled business 69-40. First round of playoffs, Mars Hill has, and beat Geraldine, a really good Geraldine team that kept getting better as the year went along, 27-21. Then you look at Winfield. Winfield lost the first game of the year to 5A quarterfinalists, Corner, 32-13. Since then, they've won 11 in a row, including beating Colbert County, a power, 44-14 in the first round of the playoffs, and then beating a very good Sylvania team that has been good all year long, that has been great defensively. They beat them 35-20. This is going to be a dogfight. I'm just telling y'all. I don't think we've talked about Winfield enough. 11-1, hadn't lost a game to a 3A opponent against 11-1 Mars Hill, who hadn't lost a game to a 3A opponent. When you look at it by the numbers, both teams are 11-1. Both teams' only losses coming to a 5A playoff team. 440 points scored on the year for Winfield, 523 for Mars Hill. 36.7 average for Winfield, 43.6 for Mars Hill. Defensively, both teams, listen to this now, both teams, listen to this defensive average. 13.2 for Winfield, 13.2 for Mars Hill. Both opponents' record, 69-62 for Winfield, 69-62 for Mars Hill. You telling me this ain't going to be a good football game? They're like mirror images of each other. Both of these teams know how to win. Both of these teams know how to win, and the game is at Mars Hill. That could be the difference in the ball game. I've been to Winfield. I've worked a camp at Winfield. They have a great indoor. Their stadium is unbelievable. It's right next to a graveyard. It's a great place to play a football game. Could that be the difference? Can Winfield stay hot? Or is Mars Hill, who a lot of people thought might be the favorite in Class 3A, especially in the North, can they stay hot? That's the questions. When you look at 3A North is going to be an absolute dogfight. It's going to be an absolute dogfight. Like Fife, Piedmont, Winfield, Mars Hill, whoever wins those two football games is going to be because they earned it. And I'm excited about that. You look at, there's a lot of power. So T.R. Miller, Winfield, Mars Hill, Fife, Piedmont, a lot of powers, Bayside Academy. Then you got Southside Selma. Could they spoil everything? First time being in this position. Could ruin everything for all these blue bloods in Class 3A? It's going to be a dogfight. The Roderick Johnson said, Winfield, baby. I'm ready to see it. Winfield made me a believer with the way they controlled Sylvania last week, so I'm ready to see if they can go up against the likes of Mars Hill and continue to do what they've done all year. So I'm going to take a quick break because I'm about out of breath. We've covered Class 3A, Class 4A, Class 6A, and Class 1A. When we come back, I'm going to turn it over to Bo for a little bit if he's feeling better. If not, then I'll substitute in and do the best job I can, so don't hate on me if I mess it up. But we'll be right back after a quick break on the road to the Blue Map.
At Southern States Bank, we pride ourselves on being your bank. We're your neighbors and involved in the community. We're the bank featuring the Southern Rewards checking account, a cashback account with no ATM fees. We are on the cutting edge and always have a smiling face to help you out. So come to Southern States Bank, where we are committed to great service and being a great neighbor. Let us be the bank for you and your business.
I'm Alan Parnell, the Parnell Insurance Agency. We've been here in Oxford and Alabama, Tallapoosa, Georgia since 1990. With Auto Owners Insurance, we're able to give customers competitive pricing along with excellent coverages. Parnell Insurance can handle all of your personal, commercial, and life insurance needs. We have a very experienced staff, both personal and commercial. All together, we've got about 125 years experience. Come see what our insurance agency can do for you in Oxford, Alabama, and Tallapoosa, Georgia.
Auto Owners Insurance.
Serving Calhoun County and the state of Alabama since 1994. Locally owned and operated, offering some of the most competitive interest rates in the mortgage industry, along with a wide variety of mortgage products. We are with you throughout the home buying process, offering you service before and after the close. Fast, reliable, local.
And you remember, if you need a home loan, call my daddy.
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Olubidi. I would like to welcome you to our clinic, which is virtually your clinic. We strive to provide a family environment from our nurses as well as the practitioners we have in the clinic to serve you and your family members. We pride ourselves for having state-of-the-art facility here in the clinic to include ultrasound, fibroscan to check on your liver. We welcome you in our clinic, your clinic at Dr. Olubidi's. And thank you so very much.
Hey guys, I'm Cameron Minton with Minton Home Center. Minton Home Center has been in business for over 40 years. We are a family-owned and operated manufactured home dealership. We offer affordable housing for our customers as well as a multitude of different financing options to help our customers get into a new home. When you come to Minton Home Center and you start looking around our lot, the first thing you will notice is that we have the most competitive prices in the industry.
Hi everybody, I'm Eli Gold and I want to invite you to tune in to Jack State Live, a look at the campus and athletic department at Jack State, followed by the Coach Rich Rod Show, where we will break down and preview the next football game for the Gamecocks.
At DVP Auto Group, we have a wide selection of any type of car you could want. We offer financing for all types of credit. Not only can we help you to purchase a car affordably, but we can help you with any issues you may experience with your car as well. We provide oil change, tire repair, brake service, or anything else you may need. We also gladly accept trade-ins, and if you're willing, we can help you drive away in a new car the same day. If you don't see something you like in the lot, we'll help you find one, whether you buy from us or not. Come see us today.
The Point at JSU is an off-campus student housing property located a half a mile away from Jacksonville State University. The Point offers fully furnished, pet-friendly, 2 bedrooms and 4 bedroom units. Resident experience is our #1 priority, therefore we do offer the following amenities: a resort-style pool, fitness center, basketball and volleyball court, and dog park. We would love for you to come see our property, so give us a call at 256-376-8317 to schedule a tour today.
When you buy insurance online, you may not always be aware of what you're getting. At Allstate Jonathan Everly, we pride ourselves on making sure that our clients are adequately protected. With over 18 years in experience, our staff is more than well prepared to provide you with the best service available. At Allstate Jonathan Everly, you're in good hands.
From our earliest beginnings, Taylor Real Estate Solutions has been a part of the JSU community, serving as Jack State's premier property management partner, but our service extends far beyond management. With over 30 years combined real estate expertise, we are your team for buying and selling real estate. Our knowledgeable agents will guide you through buying and selling process with confidence and ease.
Taylor Real Estate Solutions, Jacksonville's hometown real estate team.
At Martin's Pharmacy, a family-owned business, shopping local means personalized care from a team you trust. We accept most insurance and Medicaid, offer $3 local delivery, and provide essential services like vaccinations and wellness checks. No appointment needed. From over-the-counter items to unique gifts and greeting cards, we have it all. Serving the community since 1997, we're more than a pharmacy. We're your neighbors. Support local and experience the difference at Martin's Pharmacy.
At Southern States Bank, we pride ourselves on being your bank. We're your neighbors and involved in the community. We're the bank featuring the Southern Rewards checking account, a cashback account with no ATM fees. We are on the cutting edge and always have a smiling face to help you out. So come to Southern States Bank, where we are committed to great service and being a great neighbor. Let us be the bank for you and your business.
Welcome back to Road to the Blue Map. Road to the Blue Map is presented by Watkins Heating and Cooling. We want to thank Countertop Creations for our game-by-game breakdown as well. We can't do this without our sponsors, but I'm going to jump into Class 7A real quick. We're going to go through Class 7A pretty quick. The first semifinal game in Class 7A is Thompson and Enterprise. Coach Freeman versus Coach Blackman. He's going to be an absolute dogfight. Enterprise beat Baker last week 30-14. Thompson with a huge win over what everybody thought the team that was playing the very best in Class 7A, Auburn, 34-21 at Auburn. So huge win on the road for Thompson. And then you look at the other semifinal game, Central Phoenix City and Hoover. Hoover beat Opelika last week at home, 32-29, and a huge win for Hoover. And then you look at Central Phoenix City, 41-21 over Vestavia, and so a big win for there. So two quality matchups in Class 7A, and it could go either way in either one of those matchups. But after all this, you could end up getting Thompson and Central Phoenix City. You could also get Thompson and Hoover. You get Enterprise in one of those. But those games could go either way. But what would be a crazy turn of events if you get Thompson versus Hoover at Protective Stadium in the 7A state championship. Moving to Class 5A, first game, and I think the game that everybody's anticipating. We're talking about two undefeated teams. We're talking about a Catholic Montgomery team who hadn't lost in 26 ball games. Their last loss came on November the 26th. Of the 2022 playoffs against Andalusia. Since then, undefeated, 15-0 last year, 11-0 to start the season this year. Have not lost a football game in 26 games. This game was moved from Catholic Montgomery's home field to Faulkner's field just because they believe there are going to be that many people there watching the football game. So when you look at that, could be a lot going on there. Could be a lot to this football game. When you look at Clay Chalkville, there's two guys that you got to talk about. And last year, they're on this redemption tour that they call it. Last year, they had one of these main guys go down in LaDamian Boyd. They have him healthy this year. And then quarterback Deshaun Gibbons has been unbelievable for them as well. And then when you talk about Central Clay County, you have to talk about their defense. You have to talk about how good they've been defensively. When you look at their season, only giving up 10.3 points a game, which sounds great. But when you turn the page to the other team's defense, Catholic Montgomery's only giving up 5.6. And I know Coach Juice Johnson and Catholic Montgomery, they've been kind of have a chip on their shoulder. Everybody said they couldn't go in and win Class 5A, and all they've done is go in and go 11-0 and absolutely controlled their schedule to the tune of 11-0, averaging 47.5 points a game, only giving up 5.6. They're giving up less than a touchdown a football game, y'all. Their opponent's record 50-58. Central Clay County's opponent's record 67-63. Central Clay County has big wins over Benjamin Russell. They have a big win over Scottsboro. They have a big win over Class 6A playoff team Pell City. Big win over Beauregard. In the playoffs, they beat Greenville 49-0, and in a game everybody thought was going to be close last week, they beat Williamson 31-6. When you look at Catholic Montgomery, what they've been able to do in the playoffs, 52-0 over Hopeville, 43-0 over Centronel. Two great coaches. One that already is a Hall of Fame coach, and another one who is well on his way to being a Hall of Fame coach. When you talk about Danny Horn versus Juice Johnson, two great coaches in the state of Alabama, and both of these teams, like I said, Central Clay County 39.7 points a game. Catholic Montgomery 47.5. When you look at Catholic, the guy that you got to know about is J.J. Williams. He's a guy that can do it all for Catholic Montgomery. This is going to be an absolute dogfight in Class 5A. When you look at the next game, Viger and UMS Wright, this is two teams that really don't like each other too much. Mobile area, really don't care for each other a whole lot. And when you look at Coach McKenzie and the job he's been able to do since he came back to Viger, you look at UMS Wright, obviously, Terry Curtis and the job that he does. This is going to be a slugfest. Now, I was wrong earlier. I said that there may not be another team in the whole entire playoffs with a record of 7-5. Well, I was kind of right, because UMS Wright has a record of 6-6 coming into this ball game. You're talking about a 6-6 team, but also a football team that knows how to win when they get to the playoffs. In the playoffs, they beat Nemopolis 21-7. They beat Andalusia 7-6. In the playoffs for Viger, they beat Sipsey Valley 46-0. They beat Eufaula 41-0. This is a Viger team that's only lost one game all year, 10-9 versus 7A Baker. So we're talking about a Viger team who is a really talented football team. One of my good buddies lives in Mobile, coached in Mobile, and he told me coming into the year that Viger had a chance to win a state championship. They are well on their way to putting themselves in a position to do that, but they got to get through a really good, battle-tested UMS Wright team. When you look at UMS Wright, they got beat by St. Paul's 10-3. They lost to Viger earlier in the year, 30-14. We talked about it already. There's some stuff that can go into that. There's not a whole lot of takeaways that you can go out of that, because you're talking about a game that happened before the midway point in the season. UMS Wright has improved, so has Viger. Which team will be the best on Friday night? When you look at it by the numbers, UMS Wright only averaging 17.3 points a game, averaging only giving up 13. Listen to these numbers, though. Listen to these defensive numbers for Viger. Averaging giving up 4.3 points a ball game, averaging scoring 36.6. A Viger team that knows how to play defense, a Viger team that scored a lot of points offensively in the playoffs. This is bound to be an unbelievable matchup in Class 5A. And when you move to 5A North, you got the team who is used to being there in the Ramsey Rams. And then you got Moody, who I believe this is the first time in school history that they've hosted. Oh, actually, this would be the first time that they would win a home playoff game in the quarterfinals. They are 0-2 all-time in the quarterfinals at home. On the road, Ramsey is 2-0 all-time in the quarterfinals. When you look at Ramsey, they beat a really good Scottsboro team last week, 40-27. They beat Ardmore in the first week of the playoffs, 47-0. For Moody, they beat a really good Arab team, 49-7 to start the playoffs, and then blanked Winona last week, 34-0. Their common opponent is Winona. Like I just said, Moody beat them last week, 34-0. Earlier in the year, Ramsey beat them 26-0. This is a Ramsey team that comes in the ball game 8-3. But listen to this: they lost the first two games of the year. Listen who they lost to: Parker and Clay Chalton. All right. Since then, they lost a corner team who is still in these 5A playoffs. We'll talk about them in just a second. But since then, they have not lost a ball game and are playing really, really well of late. The Rams' offense is averaging 29.7 points a game. Their defense averaging giving up 15.8. When you look at Moody, they're averaging 37.7. This is another team. Moody comes in at 9-2. But I want you to listen to this. They've won 9 straight after starting the year out with Gainesville, Georgia, with a guy as their head coach who's we're very familiar with around here, Josh Niblett. They lost 31-7 that game. And then they lost to Oxford, who has a chance to win a 6A state championship, 24-21, and the game was at Oxford, at Lamar Field, in a game that Moody actually led for most of the ball game. And so when you look at that, Moody is a team that's battle-tested. Ramsey is a team that's battle-tested. This is going to be a dogfight right here when you look at what – but if you look at the job Coach Jake Gannis has done to get Moody to this point, not a team that's used to playing this football games at this point in the season, and now I've done it 2 years in a row, they're rolling. All right, their opponent's record 61-48. Ramsey's opponent's record 75-46. Both of these teams are battle-tested. Both of these teams played very tough schedule. Which one can get the job done in the third round of the playoffs in the biggest matchup? This game will be at Moody. And so Moody gets this game at home. It's going to be a huge home playoff game hosted by Moody. And I know that crowd will be unbelievable. I know it'll be electric, but a very, very, very good ball game. And so then the last game in Class 5A, Leeds and Corner. Leeds and Corner. Now, raise your hand if you thought that the Corner Yellow Jackets were still going to be playing in the quarterfinals of the Class 5A playoffs. And if you raise your hand, you're a liar. But they only have one loss on the year. We're talking about a Corner team who only lost to Briarwood midway through the year. They got wins over Winfield, who is still playing in Class 3A. Win over Dora, who finished second in their region in Class 4A. Winona, who just got put out last week. Ramsey, who's still in it. Jacksonville, who's a 5A playoff team. They beat Hayden. They beat John Carroll. They beat Carver of Birmingham. And they beat Springville. In the playoffs, they beat Lawrence County 49-35. They beat Boaz, a really good Boaz team, last week 52-42. And then you turn around and you look at Leeds. They got 2 losses on the year, Briarwood and Moody. Look at what they've done in the playoffs. They beat a Garnesville team who was ranked number 1 in the state for some of the season, 35-28. Turn around, play Fairview. They beat Fairview 36-22. All right. When you look at Corner and Leeds, this is a game of a 10-2 football team and 11-1 football team. The question is Leeds has been in this position before. How does Corner handle it? How do they handle preparation? How do they handle being this far in the season? Both of these teams are very good football teams, like we talked about. And I think a lot of people going in would say that it's probably going to be Leeds and Moody in a rematch in the semifinals of Class 5A North. But we have to play a football game. Like Corner's not just going to roll over. You look at Corner by the numbers, 31.9 points a game, only averaging giving up 22.8. Compared to a Leeds team who scored 36.9 but gave up almost 25 points a game. Both of these teams, opponents' record, 71-58 for Corner, 59-66 for Leeds. Does the strength of schedule hold up for Corner, or does Leeds and their familiarity with being at this point in the playoffs, does that help them out? Big question marks going into the Class 5A quarterfinals. And then Class 2A, closing out with Class 2A. When you look at Class 2A, a lot of good matchups in Class 2A. And starting out with Cottonwood and Reeltown. Now, Reeltown has lost 1 football game on the year. And it was to T.R. Miller. And at that point in the year, we didn't really know how good T.R. Miller was going to be. Now we know. T.R. Miller's still playing in the 3A playoffs. Got a chance to come out of the South in Class 3A. They lost 28-7, but since then they have reeled off 11 straight football games. They beat Trinity 20-3. Horseshoe Bend 61-0. Ranburne 48-0. Lochapoka 27-13. Dadeville 34-6. Lynette 40-0. Lafayette 54-12. Central Coosa 53-0. Lee Scott Academy 26-9. Then in the playoffs they beat Houston Academy 65-0 and Laverne 57-14. Hadn't really played a close football game since they lost to T.R. Miller in the first game of the year. Then you look at Cottonwood. They are 12-0 on the year. Have not lost a football game. And both of these, look at by the numbers. Cottonwood's averaging 48 points a game. Reeltown's averaging 41. Cottonwood's giving up 11. Reeltown's giving up 7.1. Cottonwood's opponents, 58-61 record. Opponents' record for Reeltown, 65-65. This is going to be a really good football game between 2 really good football teams. When you look at it all time, Cottonwood is 1-3 on the road in the quarterfinals. Reeltown is 7-2 at home in the quarterfinals. Reeltown is a team in Class 2A that we really hadn't talked enough about. They were very good last year. Very good football team last year. And when you look at them this year, after they lost to T.R. Miller, they've read off 11 straight and really playing good football. But the same can be said for a 12-0 Cottonwood team. Talking about a really good matchup in Class 2A to start out our Class 2A breakdown. In the South, also, you got Ayrton and Highland Home. And I will be honest with you, I've been high on Highland Home pretty much the entire year. Felt like they were one of the most talented teams in Class 2A. They beat Providence Christian last week 42-6. Clark County, Ayrton defeated Clark County 27-7. Going back to the other games, Reeltown defeated Laverne 57-14, and Cottonwood defeated Goshen 52-24. But when you look at this Ayrton team, they come into the playoffs with a 7-5 record. But they're playing their best football when it matters. They beat Lochapoka 14-7, a very talented Lochapoka team. Then they beat Clark County 27-7. But when you look at it by the numbers, like I said, 7-5 record for Ayrton, 12-0 for Highland Home. 47.7 points per game for Highland Home, 26.4 for Ayrton. 4.8 points given up per game by Highland Home. 24.4 for Ayrton. Opponents' record, though, 53-72 for Highland Home, 75-55 opponents' record for Ayrton. Like, when you look at this, though, on paper, Highland Home is a very much favored football team. Let me tell you, Highland Home in this football game is favored by 28 points. So, can Highland Home take care of business, or does Ayrton shock the world and come in and play really well against a very highly touted, probably one of the favorites to win Class 2A? What happens in this ball game? Do the Flying Squadron continue to dominate like they've done everybody all year, or does the Purple Cat shock the world? It's going to be very, very intriguing to see what happens in that ball game. And then you flip it over to the north, and you get Sulligent. Sulligent host Winston County. This is a Winston County team also that's 12-0 on the year. All right, and you look at it by the numbers, 12-0 versus an 8-4 Sulligent team. All right, let's look at the losses that Sulligent has. They got beat by Winfield 26-8. Winfield's still playing in Class 3A. They got beat by Greene County 28-6. They lost to Vincent 29-6. They lost to Hamilton 42-28. This is a Sulligent team now that lost 4 out of the first 6 and hadn't lost since. This is a Sulligent team that beat Lamar County. This is a Sulligent team that beat Tuscaloosa Academy, who is also still in the north. This is a Sulligent team that beat Pleasant Valley in the first round 56-22 and beat Southeastern 38-24 in the second round. An 8-4 Sulligent team. This is a Sulligent team, like I said earlier in one of our other shows, it's been a roller coaster. But when they're playing well, they're hard to beat. They get a good football team. You don't just beat Tuscaloosa Academy and not be a good football team. We saw Tuscaloosa Academy up close and personal against a really good Coosa Christian team, and Sulligent has a win over them. So what Sulligent team do we get? Do we get the Sulligent team that lost 3 in a row? Or do we get the Sulligent team that beat Tuscaloosa Academy? Because if we get that team, they're going to be able to match up against a 12-0 Winston County team. When you look at Winston County, by the record, they beat Addison 48-13. They beat Meek 36-6. Beat Tanner 50-0. Red Bay 51-8. Cold Springs 27-6. Curry 46-0. Lexington 32-6. Tharptown 72-20. Decatur Heritage 14-7. And Faultville 49-6. In the playoffs, they beat Cold Springs 56-34 and Vincent 25-20. So common opponent. Sulligent lost to Vincent early in the year when they wasn't playing very well, 29-6. And Winston County beat Vincent last round 25-20. What Sulligent team do we get? By the numbers, Winston County 42.2 points a game. Defensively, 10.5 points given up a game. You look at Sulligent, 30.5 and 23.1. Opponent record for Sulligent, 79-52. Opponent record for Winston County, 56-24. What Sulligent team do we get? We know how good Winston County is, 12-0. Hadn't lost a game all year. All right, they've matched up 27 times on the field in history. Sulligent holds a 15-12 edge in those games. What Sulligent team do we get? Do we get 3-game losing streak Sulligent? Injuries could have played a factor. Guys not playing in the right position at that point could have played a factor. Or do we get beat Tuscaloosa Academy, another quarterfinal team, Sulligent? Winston County, we kind of know what we're getting. What Sulligent team do we get? That's going to be a really good matchup in Class 2A with a lot of question marks. And then finally, Tuscaloosa Academy at Pisgah, probably the 2A game that everybody's looking the most forward to. We're talking about a Pisgah team that's only lost 1 game all year to a 3A Sylvania team who just lost in the 3A playoffs last week, 24-22. And then you're talking about a Tuscaloosa Academy team that only has 2 losses, one to Sulligent, 46-44, and then a 35-21 loss to Coosa Christian the next to last game of the year. Then they turn around and beat a Bayside Academy team who's still in the 3A playoffs in the quarterfinals, 14-13 in the last regular season game. This game is a game that everybody thought we might get. 11-1 Pisgah, 10-2 Tuscaloosa Academy. Tuscaloosa Academy has one of the best quarterbacks in Class 2A. And LaRodrick Johnson just said, talking about the Sulligent Winston County game, they had a lot of injuries. When we talk about that, you look at that, the Sulligent healthy, looks like they've been healthy. Can they keep playing the way they're playing? But going back to Pisgah and Tuscaloosa Academy, you talk about the coach, the job that Coach Pruitt's done at Pisgah, building a program. The Pisgah Eagles have qualified the playoffs 27 times since 1966. They're still in search of their first ever playoff state championship. Is this the year? This could be one of their toughest matchups right here. Tuscaloosa Academy Knights have qualified for the playoffs a total of 21 times. They won the only playoff state championship in history in 2012. Both of these teams are in dire need and want to get back to Birmingham. But you look at it by the numbers, Pisgah 43.7, 14 points given up on defense, 35.8 points scored a game for Tuscaloosa Academy, 16.1 given up on defense for them. Opponents record 67-63 versus 65-66 for Tuscaloosa Academy. So both played pretty formidable schedules. Both of them played really good opponents. You talk about Pisgah, big win over 5, 30-22. 5 still playing in the Class 3A playoffs. They got big wins over. They got a big win over Aliceville and Faultville to start the playoffs, 50-28, 42-14. In the playoffs, Tuscaloosa Academy 42-6 against North Sand Mountain and 34-9 against Susan Moore. They both have common opponents in Aliceville and North Sand Mountain. Both of them won big in those football games. Two pretty good football teams matching up in the quarterfinals of the Class 2A. Who wins? Does Luke Gilbert do his magic like he did earlier in the year against Fife and will his team to victory? Or has Tuscaloosa Academy just got too much for Pisgah? It's going to be a big. It's 2A is going to be fun to watch as well. All these playoffs are going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be really good. And we're excited. We're going to be back. Like I said, me and Buckethead were out last Friday night, but we are back to close out the year in our 5th quarter show. That'll be Friday night. You can catch it on TV 24. You can catch it on Average Joe's. You can catch it on the radio on 95.1 The Mountain. So if you're coming back from a game, tune in. You can also catch it on our Facebooks, anything like that for all 3 of those platforms as well. Going to be a really, really, really interesting week. When you look at it from 1A all the way to 7A, some really good matchups, some really good teams, and I feel like that when you think about some of the stuff going on and you think about what these matchups have to offer, when you look at Class 7A, can Enterprise finally get over the hump? Can Hoover get back to Birmingham? Or Central Phoenix City and Thompson just going to be too much for those two teams? In Class 6A, can Fort Payne pull off another upset? Is Oxford just too much? Is probably the favorite Saraland and Parker, can they handle business? Or can Spain Park's magical run continue? Muscle Shoals, can they score enough points to beat Parker? They've been prolific on offense all year. Pike Road used to be in this position. Can they outlast Hueytown for a berth in the Class 6A semifinals? Or is Hueytown, the Golden Gophers, finally going to take that step forward and get back to the semifinals in Class 6A? And you look at Class 5A, the game that everybody's probably looking forward to, Central Clay County and Catholic Montgomery. 2 really good football programs. Central Clay on redemption tour. Catholic Montgomery hadn't lost in 26 games. What's that going to look like? UMS Wright versus Viger, 2 teams that really don't like each other. 2 really good coaches. 2 different styles. Ramsey and Moody. Ramsey, power in Class 5A past couple of years. Moody, new kid on the block. Coach Jake Gaines has done a good job since he's been there. Who wins that slugfest? Corner and Leeds. Who thought Corner was going to be here? Leeds. Who thought they were going to be back? They were supposed to be down this year, playing for a berth for the 5A semifinals. In Class 4A, St. Michael, coached by Phillip Rivers, and Fairfield, 2 teams that are not used to being at this point, face off against each other. Tallahassee at Jackson. Can Tallahassee continue their magical run back to being what they're used to being, or is Jackson just too much? Everybody feels like Jackson's the 4A favorite. Cherokee County, can they continue to dominate the North in Class 4A? They got to get through Brooks to do it. Anniston, can they continue their magical run after they're 7-5? Finished the year 5-5. They play an undefeated West Morgan team. Can they continue their magic? Bayside Academy at Southside Selma. Southside Selma not used to being this part, but they're a different ball team. They're a good ball team. I don't care if they're used to being here or not. They're really good. Houston Academy at T.R. Miller. Another blue blood in Class 3A, and they're back. Can they continue their dominance? Fife at Piedmont. at the Field of Champions, at a place that's used to seeing big football games. You got two really good teams with two different contrasting styles. How's that go? Winfield at Mars Hill. Winfield's been really, really good. Mars Hill's been really, really good. Talking about two teams that's only lost to 5A opponents. Have not lost in Class 3A. One of them's going to walk out with their first loss and their season over this year. Cottonwood at Reeltown. Highland Home at Ayrton. Winston County at Sullivan. Sullivan 8-4, but playing really good football. Winston County 12-0. How's that game work out? Pisgah at Tuscaloosa Academy. Two of the best teams in Class 2A face off in a quarterfinal matchup to see who plays for a chance to go play for the semifinals. That's going to be a good matchup. Two different styles. Maplesville at Millry in Class 1A. Georgiana at Elba. Georgiana just beat the defending state champions 16-14. Elba got Alvin Henderson, one of the best players in Class 1A in our state. All right, broke records, nationally known. Auburn commit. Can Elba play good enough defense to win the football game? Wadley at Berry Fayette. Can Wadley continue their dominance? Berry Fayette coming off a huge win over Spring Garden. Then you got Hackleburg at Lynn, a matchup that Hackleburg won earlier in the year, but Lynn looks like they're a different football team. Lot to look forward to. I know I'm going to be at a football game. I hope you will too. There's nothing like high school football atmosphere. Definitely in the state of Alabama. This has been Road to the Blue Map. I want to thank our sponsors, Watkins Heating and Cooling again.